Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Beach FM like to make very welcome now spokesperson for Puketapu Hapū, ki Paraparaumu, George Jenkins. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, John, and kia ora to Kapiti.
George, I'd love to talk to you about the airport and a meeting tomorrow about the possible future directions of the airport. What is the position of the Hapū?
Our position is that we seek the retention of Kapiti Airport. Our position with regards to the land is this. The land was taken as a public work for the emergency, for the war, as a war requirement, as an emergency landing ground for Rongotai Airport back in 1938. When the government privatised the airport in 1995, we protested then, as we did in 1999 by way of an occupation, because we could see the obvious then, as we are seeing the obvious today, that the airport would be shut down, subdivided and sold off. That is the reality that we face today.
Let's get into that. The Public Works Act aspect of this has always worried me, George, and there was something called the Airport Authorities Act, which I believe was in place in 1995, but in 1997 that act was amended so that the provision of the Public Works Act requiring surplus, in quotation marks, land to be offered back to the original owners would still apply. So it seems that that Airport Authorities Act that was used to privatise Kapiti Airport, it was acknowledged in some quarters that it was an error in 1995. Do you think that that gives you legal grounds to contest?
When we filed an injunction in 1995 to stop the privatisation of the airport, Justice Naser found in the High Court that the Public Works Act provisions as relate to offer back were protected. And as you mentioned, the Airport Authorities Act was amended for that purpose. Yes. However, under Sir Noel Robinson's ownership of the airport, offer back provisions were exercised, in that certain individuals were offered money for their interests. That came at a time when Sir Noel Robinson campaigned greatly around this community about his plans for a brand new airport terminal and for the airport to become a key transport hub to the community. Our position with regards, our legal position with regards to offer back, my best understanding, no longer exists. What we do have is a treaty claim. Last year, we presented evidence before the Waitangi Tribunal, and it's been over 18 months. It generally takes approximately 2 to 3 years for the tribunal to present their findings.
Is there any possibility of filing an urgent application to the Waitangi Tribunal to attempt to stop any sale or any movement of the land away from the airport purposes it currently serves?
That's in fact one of the options that we definitely do have, and we are prepared to file an application for urgent hearing before the Waitangi Tribunal to stop any sale should the airport company make that public declaration that the airport will be shut down. Now, I can divulge that I have spoken with other members of our Kapiti, say the Kapiti Airport Group, people such as Air Chatham, Sound Air, Kapiti Aero Club, other private aircraft operators, about the commercial viability of the airport as an airport and into the future, but also B, what the company intends to do now. Now, they've advised me that there was an intention by the airport authority, by the airport company, to make a declaration tomorrow.
Really?
That the airport will be shut down in September. That has now been pushed out. What we really seek, and what we really see as the best option, and what I presented to council is this: support us in saving the Kapiti Airport, so that we can buy time to investigate options as to how Kapiti Airport can be saved. The current owners, Templeton Group and Alvarium Investments, are professional real estate developers and a global investment group. They are professional developers with deep pockets. and their intention, like anybody else in their position, is simply to make money for their shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
The loyalty to this community is, in my opinion, zero. However, I have yet to actually meet with the airport owners, but I intend to do that on Sunday.
Okay. Could I ask whether the Hapū does believe that the current land should remain as an airport and as a community asset?
Absolutely. We've always said that the airport is a community asset. And we've always said that we believe in the retention of the airport. We simply seek to become the landowners. And with a partnership, a possible partnership with vested actual aircraft operations, we believe that, especially we're having had talks with those parties, that there is a commercial viability for this airport. The contention that has been reported that the airport is not commercially viable is debatable. Transmission Gully will open soon.
Yes, it will, and therefore new possibilities.
Yes.
You say you're talking with other parties that have a vested interest in preserving Kapiti Airport. Have any of those parties got substantial financial resources? I believe one of the issues is that the current runway is in need of maintenance, which could cost around about $4.5 million. And that is a very real concern, surely, for any new grouping looking to take over the airport.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It was brought up, particularly by Ed Chathams in my discussions with them. But I can say that from their perspective, they report that Air Chatham's route from Paraparaumu has been their best performing route out of all of their routes since lockdown. They believe, as does Kapiti Aero Club, as does Sounds Air, that the commercial viability of the airport is positive looking into the future, into the near future. And as far as maintenance of the airport is concerned, there needs to be a robust business plan, clearly, that accommodates all of these things.
Yes. In your submissions to Council, did you bring up the fact that when Sir Noel Robinson was leading the charge, and of course there was rezoning, as I remember, you did not go along with that rezoning, but the argument at the time was that rezoning to allow commercial activities would then cover any shortfall in the operations of the airport, and that was the solution that was promoted at the time. I know that you did not accept it at the time, but is that something that you brought up with the Kapiti Coast District Council?
We always recognised that the commercial viability of the airport would rely on the development of surrounding areas, those lands that were outside that part of the airport that was reserved for actual airport operations. And the rezoning that happened under Sir Noel Robinson's ownership allowed for that zoning to be made, I think they call it mixed use airport purposes.
That's right.
An airport precinct. Now, we were against that rezoning because of what we saw this year. Now, that what's known as Kapiti Landing was placed on trade me for sale.
Mm-hmm.
We find ourselves at a huge risk of losing that land forever, as we do with this current contention that the airport is going to be shut down.
Yes, and the fact that they're peeling away the commercial aspect of it is going to make the viability of the airport even less financial. So
yes.
that probably means that, in a way, it's a prophecy which is self-fulfilling, in that if you do get rid of the commercial operations, and this was the solution the community went along with, the commercial operations subsidised the airport, therefore it's all, as a package, a financial operation. But if you peel away the commercial operations, the airport has got no way of being financial, and therefore it opens it up to other purposes.
Exactly. It's like the noose has already been tied. Our intention is to try to become landowners in a partnership with other other organisations that have vested interests in actual aircraft operations. In that way, we would, as landowners, be able to develop those surplus lands in order to keep that airport commercially viable. And that would remove any treaty claims, because the ownership would then return to its rightful owners. And the commercial viability of the airport would be guaranteed, I would think, especially with the extensive network held by organisations such as the Aero Club, Air Chathams, Sons Air. I'm more than hopeful, in fact I'm confident, that a business plan could be realised that will serve all interests.
Well, let's hope it does work out that way. Very important meeting on Saturday. You say you're meeting with the new owners on Sunday. Perhaps you could keep us apprised of what's going on, George. Would very much appreciate your perspective on this very important issue for our area. George Jenkins, spokesperson for the Puketapu Hapū ki Paraparaumu. We thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Kia kaha.
Sure.
106.3 Beach FM.